Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to this week's edition of Artist Alchemy. This is the show each week where we come together and talk to artists and find out about that magic they do, turning everyday things into works of art and trying to make sense of our crazy lives, especially poignant nowadays. Our special guest this week is Aaron Burks. Aaron's a Navy veteran, Army veteran, and professional artist, and so great to see you, Aaron. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit. How are you?
Well said. Tell us, expand on that a little more, if you would. How are you and your family doing during crazy times of COVID?
We're weathering it just like everybody else, trying to stay sane, trying to stay away from other people, and just get through this. Hopefully, no worse for wear on the other side than we were when we went into it. So.
Yeah, here. I know that staying away from people is hard. I mean, well, and you're the artist. I'm sure you'd like to hole up for hours at a time and just draw or paint, and then you got those other responsibilities of family and child raising and everything else that we're called on to do. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. As I was preparing for for our conversation today, I was just thinking back on, when we first met, and I think it was out at one of the first Harvest the Arts events out at John Hyer's farm in Live Oak. And I didn't know you, but I saw your work. You had somehow signed up, I guess, through the office to be an exhibitor. And you had some of your maritime paintings, the ships at sea. And I met you then. I was just really taken by your oil paintings. I'm not a professional artist by any means, but I know there's something to capturing water at various stages of unrest and the wake and the waves, and just the power and the majesty in that. And anyway, I've always thought you've done that so well, and your ships, whatever view you present them in, are always magnificent. So I was, as I said, I was taken by those oils. A lot of what defines you and your work was your time in service, first in the Navy and then the Army. Talk about that time and your transition, or your time in the Navy and then in the Army, and I'll let you take it from there.
All right. Well, I joined the Navy in 1995. I was 17, so I was really young. I spent 8 years in the Navy initially. 5 of that was at sea, and then I got stationed at NAS Lemoore when 9/11 happened, and then we went into Iraq, and I was still stuck on shore duty. And as a sailor on shore duty, it's like you're just biding time.
Yeah.
So being young and impetuous, I decided I had enough of sitting and waiting for some better orders to come along. So I got out of the Navy and went into the Army. And I did a combat tour with the Army. And I realized during that time that I'm way more of a sailor than I am a soldier. Not that I was a bad soldier. I was a good soldier. I think I made a better sailor.
Your heart. From everything I've seen and read that you've posted, I think your heart's at sea, though, isn't it?
What's that?
Your heart is really at sea.
Yes. Yeah. I'm way more inspired by my time in the Navy. I think my time in the Army was a lot more tumultuous. So I tend to focus on what the kind of scenes that I saw in the Navy and the interesting aspects of it and all that. So yeah, I liked it enough to go back in after I got out of the Army, and so I did a tour in Japan.
You went back to the Navy after the Army?
Yep.
Oh, I
And
didn't
then the
realize
Navy
you were.
downsized on me, so I had to go back into the Army after that.
Oh my God, I had no
So
idea you
I
were
went
in there.
Navy, Army, Navy, Army.
Oh, I had no idea. I
And
thought you were Navy, Army. Oh, gee, shows you what I
yeah,
know.
no, two of each. And I did another combat tour with the Army, and then I got medically retired after that one. So I did 15 years altogether and
Did
retired in 2011.
did you have to go to boot camp when you went into the Army?
No, thank God.
I was kind of wondering.
I
I was
didn't have to
curious.
go. I had to go to when I went into the Army initially in 2004. They were just trying to, if you were a other service veteran, they were just trying to get you to learn your job, your MOS, and then get you out into into the forces.
Yeah.
And so I joined the Army, and then they sent me through infantry training school, which what I was. I was an infantryman, and then they just sent me out. So by the time I went to the Army the second time, I had already had Army experience, so I didn't have to go to boot camp again. Even though they were starting to make other service veterans go to boot camp after that. So I got to skip that.
Where is Army boot camp? I mean, I know about Great Lakes, of course, for the Navy,
Yeah,
but where's boot camp for Army?
I believe it's in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Has it been okay? Oh, that's okay. I've had other friends that were there, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the paratroopers train there, the 82nd and 101st, and those guys. Gosh, that's fascinating just to learn that about you. What a interesting military career. Gee.
Yeah, it was interesting.
But it all rolls up to your cumulative service. I mean, you get obviously the credit for the 15 years.
Yeah.
And the benefits that hopefully accrue therewith. So where'd the art thing come in? Here you are, this sailor, soldier, artist.
Yeah.
Where'd the artist part start?
I've always liked drawing since I was a little kid, like 3 or 4 years old. It was always, well, like most kids are.
Yeah.
I think most kids start out being artistic, and then they either get cultivated and encouraged, or they get steered in other directions. And thankfully, my mother was encouraging of drawing and all that, so I always enjoyed it. But I never really thought of it as a vocation until after I retired. So, and that was almost just on a whim, because I wanted to use my GI Bill and go to college, and I was doing all my general ed stuff at a community college, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to major in. And
come on, art.
I figured art. Why not? Because at the time I was like, I'm retired anyway, so it's not like I need to do anything really major and go into like astrophysics and get a job or anything. But I ended up doing art, making a profession out of it. So.
And when you retired, were you down in Memphis?
I retired while I was in Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah. And you actually then after community college, you went to the University of Tennessee.
Yes. I graduated from the University of Tennessee Martin in 2015.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Good experience. Apparently, you had a hell of a lot of natural talent.
Thank you.
Now you're into this portrait world that we'll talk about here a little bit more in a minute. Well, it seems so simple, childhood fascination with art, and you're a Southern California guy, right? Grew up in Long Beach mostly, or?
Yes, born and raised in Long Beach. By the time I turned 13, we moved to Orange County, Westminster, which is right by Huntington Beach. And we lived there until I was 16, and we moved to Torrance. So the whole, basically Southern California, Los Angeles area is where I grew up, and kind of what I'm used to.
Yeah. Well, I was just up the road from you in the San Fernando Valley where I grew up. So we were almost neighbors and didn't even know it. But
yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
but
My wife is from right by the San Fernando Valley. She's from Sunland. So.
Oh yeah, that's just up the road from where I was.
Yeah.
I've got a Rogue Alexa
World.
that started some music, and I hate to do this, but hold on just a minute.
Yeah, that's all right.
Alexa, off. Well, that's a first you saw on the show today, but we've got little Alexa devices all over that. I must have said something that set her off, and she started singing some music I didn't recognize. So, pardon the interruption.
That's all right.
We're Southern California guys. Here we are now, living the dream life up in YubaSutter. Or actually, in your case, you live in Gridley, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Gridley, California. It's a small town for those who don't know it.
I'm always a little bit jealous though. Every time I drive through it, I go, "Oh my gosh, you all have a Safeway."
Right. That's pretty much all we have.
We got a real grocery store. It's more than we have here in Plumas Lake. So,
yeah.
But I hear you. I like the high school too. I've gone to their Renaissance festivals every holiday season. John Nieswanger, a good friend of ours, electrician, who helps put that on every year, and that's a lot of fun. They do a great job. All right, so that's how you trained as an artist. What about outstanding influences on your art along the way? You talked before we went on air about your favorite artist. Talk about some of those folks, either favorite passed away artists or other current contemporary artists that you admire.
Well, I'm very inspired by late Renaissance and Baroque artists. So Hans Holbein is probably my all-time favorite portrait artist. With Van Dyck might be a close second.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, and then for maritime artwork, I'm really kind of inspired by Van de Velde, who's a artist from the 1600s, Flemish maritime artist. But I'm really influenced by artists from the 20th century like Chris Major or Carl Evers, and who are both really prolific artists in the maritime field. So I look to them for inspiration, and if I'm struggling with a certain technique, I tend to reference their artwork to see how they did it. And artwork is being an artist is a constant learning endeavor. So.
To reference a work for technique, do you have to see the original piece, or can you do it from a print or a book?
I think looking at the original is always the best thing, but obviously it's not always possible. So I read a lot of books. When I can, I try to pick up books that talk about artist techniques and how they did stuff, or search up YouTube videos. I think watching art history documentaries might be my favorite pastime. So. But I learned from those, and I am really interested in the lives of these artists because I think their lives kind of molded their artwork. So try to understand their lives and the surroundings they came up in, to understand their work a little better.
You're a great case in point, right?
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's interesting talking about learning different techniques. I mean, I've been going to art museums all my life. I had some great mentors when I was a young person, and just from a amateur viewer kind of perspective. And I don't know maybe it's talking to guys like you the last few years, but now I just can't escape whenever I see an original work of art or a print that's a good quality print or reproduction, and just getting into those brush strokes. And I get a lot of feeds through my email of different gallery shows, and they show close-ups. And there's a new series of books, 3 volumes, where the photographers have documented every square millimeter of the Sistine Chapel. And
Wow.
and it's 3 volumes. It's only $22,000. Of course, I immediately signed up. But they're epic, books. They weigh 25 pounds a piece. But they showed some of the images, and I'm sitting there this morning looking at this just real quickly, and I'm seeing, like I would never see otherwise, these brush strokes, in the eyes and the way he created it was just fascinating. And so you talk about techniques, and I know there's a lot more than just putting brush on whatever material, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So fascinated by all of that. We've worked with you on a number of projects at YubaSutterArts&Culture, and I think maybe the first one was the Veterans Art Park, the murals in Marysville.
Yeah, I think so.
You came out and helped us with that. We got a grant from the state, from their Veterans Initiative in the Arts. And you kind of covered 2 bases. You were both a veteran participant, telling part of your story from your time in service, and you were also a mentor to just some of the veterans that wanted your help conveying their experiences. Like, my favorite story is my old friend, the late Bob Gass, paratrooper. I learned a lot about jumping out of airplanes from him, and he was 82nd Airborne, and could tell me everything about every one of his 46 jumps. And it was pretty fascinating. And what you helped him create, that is just a cherished experience and memory. That shot from below of the paratroopers coming out of the plane, it was just fantastic. For those of you who don't know this location, it's in Marysville, right on B Street, across from Ellis Lake, just north of the Quick Stop, right there at Highway 20 and B Street. And it's a semicircle of 7 murals, several created by and about Aaron, and then a couple of other artists and other veterans. If you get a chance to go by there tomorrow, it's a great opportunity on Veterans Day to visit this site. Be sure you walk around, though. On the backside is information shared by the artist as well as the veterans about their experience and what they were trying to convey. We're very proud of that installation, and we pay to keep it kept to this day, to take care of the grounds and what have you. So that was a great project. I love your portrayal too of, I'll say, your wife, kind of that classic idea of the wife at home while the sailor is at sea waiting for the return, right?
Yeah.
It was,
trying to convey that families ultimately make a sacrifice too, whether that be a wife at home or, in other cases, a husband at home, taking care of the family and the home on their own. So I wanted to both convey the sacrifice that we as service members make, plus the sacrifices that our families make by extension.
No question about it. So then we, a little closer to home, we dragged you into our mural marathon in Live Oak 2 years ago, and you created a beautiful portrait of a U-2 pilot, and with some artwork that was originally created by the PR department at Beale, but you created that 14 by 14 foot mural, and it's right at Elm and Broadway on the side of the old Sonny's Market. You were one of 5 artists that day, finishing that up and getting it done. That was a great, another great project that you helped us out with. And,
yeah, that was a fun one.
yeah, yeah, it was wild. We had a heck of a party. It's like a big giant art party out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then this is an interesting one, I've thought. We tried to put together like the sip and sketch events that are so popular, and folks get together and they agree on a kind of a, hey, here's the project tonight kind of thing. And I don't want to, skew the demographic, but I think typically those are attended by women. We did a few of these a few years back, kind of got the idea started in the community, and occasionally we get a guy came in. Heck, I participated in one and had a heck of a time. That one was led by Max Komisarchik. But since then, we've seen, I think, mostly women signing up over at Beauty of Paint. Christina May, correct me if I'm wrong. And we thought, gee, what if there was a one that was more thematically, aligned to maybe a guy's interest if he wanted to get involved in painting at all. So we cooked up an event called, I think, Brews and Battleships. We thought, boy, that doesn't get the testosterone pumping, nothing will, right? And didn't have enough signups to make it viable, but oh well, win them all, right?
Yeah. You live and learn.
I still like that idea. If there's interest out there now during the pandemic, we could do a virtual Bob Ross style Brews and Battleships. Let us know. We'll bring it back and see what we can do.
Yeah.
You've done a number of art gallery exhibits with us, and I know you'll be part of our Veterans Day event tomorrow. Let me come back to that though, because before we do that, I wanted to focus first on the current project we have underway. This is one that's been funded by a California Arts Council grant, and it's called Sleeping Giants: Pearl Harbor Survivors Then and Now. And when you first told us about this project last year and we wrote the grant, I was so hopeful that I think we went ahead and sent you to Hawaii even before we got the grant funded. So, but just take us through that one, because it's a spectacular project.
Well, it started out in I think the idea came to me around November in 2018. We had a Pearl Harbor survivor here in Gridley named Beer Gardner.
Yeah.
And he was just a really great, wonderful guy. He was in my BFW post here.
Was that how you knew him? I knew you knew him because I met him when we did our portraits of veterans, and you were both at the museum that day, I think, and I met him there.
We both belong to the same VFW post, 5731 here in Gridley. And so getting to talk to him all the time, I thought to myself, I really want to honor his service by doing a portrait of him. And so I started doing this portrait, and before I finished it, unfortunately, he passed away. And that idea eventually snowballed into this idea of trying to meet every living Pearl Harbor survivor that I can and interviewing them and doing a portrait of them then and now. And I just have so much respect, and I feel indebted to them in a way, because when I was growing up, when I was a kid, I had 2 mentors who were Pearl Harbor survivors. I had one that lived down the street from me, and one that was in charge of my Sea Cadet unit that I was in. So these guys really kind of molded me into the person that I am today, and I felt like this is a good way to honor their memories. And so it went from just being Vera Gardner to I'm going to go around Butte County and try to meet every living Pearl Harbor survivor in Butte County. And there were only two. There was Veer Gardner and oh man, name's escaping me right now. I'll remember it probably right after we finish the show. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to branch out a little bit and go into surrounding counties. So it ended up going from Vera Gardner to Butte County to now I'm in Northern California to now I'm all the way in San Diego, and now I'm all the way up in Port Angeles, Washington. And it really kind of took on a life of its own, which, honestly is how my artwork tends to go. It'll start out as this little kernel of an idea and then just explode all over the page.
What's up?
Excuse me. So, yeah, that was one of my kids.
All right.
It really kind of blossomed into this whole idea. And before the COVID crisis struck, I had really planned on traveling across the country and trying to meet more Pearl Harbor survivors. But with the current state of affairs, it's not really possible. Even if traveling was easy to do right now, most elderly people are not going to want to meet in person. So,
well, I know we got the grant. That's the heartbreak of it. I mean, we thank goodness we got you to at least to Hawaii to be part of that memorial service last December, and then we had plans for a little few road trips and flying you around the country to wherever you could find pockets of survivors, and then boom, here we are.
Yeah.
As you point out, it's not whether or not you're comfortable flying is beside the point. It's you're dealing with folks in their 90s, and probably not a good idea to mix with the outside world at this point.
Yeah. Even if you also have to be sensitive to their family's wishes too. So even if one of the, say you had some 99-year-old Pearl Harbor survivor that was gung-ho about it, like, yeah, let's meet anyway, their family might not be too keen on the idea, and you have to respect that.
Sure.
Even before the COVID crisis, there were those instances, one or two times where the family was not in agreement with the idea. So, but you look at it from their angle, and they just have this guy calling them out of the blue, like, "Hey, can I meet your elderly family member?" And and so it's totally understandable that they'd want to protect them.
I don't know how we properly credential. You show up with a badge or something.
Well, thankfully, most of them have trusted me, and I've gotten to talk to them, and really have been better off for being able to hear so many of their stories.
Well, yeah, describe your process, because in a perfect world, okay, forget COVID for just a moment, if you can. And so pre-pandemic, you would set up a meeting, and what would happen?
Set up a meeting, and we'd agree on a time and a place, and then I would go meet them, and I would just generally start the interview in a very candid manner. I kind of try to usually connect with them on a Navy veteran level, because most of them were in the Navy, with the exception of 2 or 3. And just as a combat veteran, connect with them on that, and then talk to them about their experiences. And once they got comfortable, I'd start asking more pointed questions about their experience on December 7th. And from there, I just let them speak. The interview would go however long they wanted it to go. If they had said everything they wanted to say in 20 minutes, then it was 20 minutes. If they wanted to talk for an hour and a half, you know, I've had some verbose Pearl Harbor survivors, and that's great because they really they really add to the story little tidbits that you'll never get out of a history book.
Incredible.
And from there, I would take photographs of them because most of them are so old they don't want to like sit in the same spot for an hour while somebody draws them. So I would take photographs of them from different angles and take those home and start drawing them from there. And right now I'm still plowing through all the preliminary drawings, and I'm running a little behind because of the whole COVID thing, but
Sure.
I still plan on getting all the paintings done by December 7th of next year in time for the 80th anniversary.
Fantastic. And as far as, because the title is Pearl Harbor Survivors Then and Now, so for the then part of the project, you'd ask the family for a photograph of them back then.
Yes, and that's the hardest part, because getting to speak to them in person, you get an idea for their mannerisms, for their personality. Getting an idea of their personality out of the photograph that they hand you from 1941 is a little harder. And I try to, in the drawings, I try to breathe a little life into those by making the eyes color. So it's a black and white charcoal drawing, but the eyeballs are colored, and I think it adds a dramatic effect to it.
Because the ones I've seen have a great spirit. I mean, they really do, even though obviously you didn't know them back then. But
yeah.
So just that little bit of a relationship you build up in a 20-minute or hour-long interview can really help inform, though, the current portrait. I never thought of that before. Yeah.
And then the finished product idea is to have a painting of them in 1941 and a painting of them currently, and then with that, their story in their words. So it'll also be not just a visual experience, but a literary experience too. So what I'm trying to do is make their memories last past their generation, because they're leaving us quickly. And once they're gone, that's it. Their stories are not going to be told by them anymore. So I'm trying to make it to where their stories live on. And you look at like my favorite portrait artist, Hans Holbein. Everybody knows who Henry VIII is, and that is almost solely because of Hans Holbein and his paintings.
I can see it in my mind's eye, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody knows what Henry VIII looks like because of Hans Holbein. And so, you know, I'm hoping that maybe in 400, 500 years, I know it's a lofty hope, but people will look at these portraits and know who these people were, and their memory will be perpetuated.
Is this the same gentleman that we saw before as the then image?
Yes, that is Ray. Ray Richmond.
Ray Richmond. Gee, look at us all guys.
And look at those beautiful blue eyes. Ray Richmond was a really, really sweet man, and unfortunately he passed away in February. But he was 101 years old.
Wow.
So, he did live a very long life, and he was on the USS Oklahoma. And so in their younger portraits, I try to have where they were on December 7th in the background. So a lot of these battleship sailors have their ship in the background. I think there's one gentleman, Ray Schenkelberg, who was on shore duty at the time, and he's got the submarine base in the background. But I was really, I was very adamant about wanting to have their ships depicted in good condition. Like I think the whole everybody knows what Pearl Harbor looked like. Those pictures are in every history book. So I want people to know what their environment was before December 7th as well, if that makes any sense.
Sure. When you've really put the human face on that experience, I mean, through these. Now, these are would you call these are the preliminary drawings?
Yes, these are drawings that will then be turned into paintings in the coming year. So my process for portraits, I try to do a finished drawing, and that gets me prepared for the features, and I now have that kind of muscle memory in my wrist. And when I go to do the painting, I have a better idea of how I'm going to solve certain compositional issues that might come up. And that leaves me a lot more time and latitude to deal with color problems. And,
challenges, not
yeah.
problems.
Well, I always think, it's funny. I hate math, but maybe it's a product of how I went through college. My professor used to talk about solving things when you're doing art. So I kind of always look at creating paintings as some sort of equation that
problem solving in that context. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Because if you solve it wrong, you'll know it. It won't look right.
What an amazing project. And as you told me last year when we first started talking about this project, it's almost impossible to tell, isn't it, how many Pearl Harbor survivors there are? I know I looked on the internet, and it's not like you can go to pearlharborsurvivors.com.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, the last Pearl Harbor Survivor chapter, because there used to be a Pearl Harbor Survivor Association.
Okay.
And they closed up in 2018, I believe, 2018 or 2016. And because obviously it's not like they're getting any new members. So eventually they just decided to close the organization. And the final chapter that held a meeting was the San Diego chapter, and they held their final meeting last year. So any records on Pearl Harbor survivors that you get are going to be at least 2-3 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's really a difficult process. It starts with just researching on the internet. I decide what region I want to look at now. So San Diego area. I'll just type into Google search San Diego Pearl Harbor survivors, and it'll bring up all these newspaper articles, and then you just troll through news articles and look for names.
Okay.
Then you take those names and you go to white pages, and then you just start cold calling. And sometimes you hit it good, and sometimes you get some like young person who's like, "What? I don't know this person."
Yeah.
And then you find out that you're just a month too late, and that's always heartbreaking.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Well, we'll continue as best we can this next year, and if we can get you see any way or any folks that are able to meet with you, then you'll be on your way. But in the meantime, we'll stay safe. And you've got what, 20 or so pairings
Yes,
or that you've
I have
met with?
20 right now.
Yeah,
20. I have 20 veterans, so that will make for 40 paintings.
yeah. That's a
So
lot of work.
even now, it's still it'll still be a sizable show.
Oh
I'm
gosh.
still considering, like we talked about previously, Zoom calling Pearl
Well,
Harbor survivors. It's still on the table.
yeah.
I'm just right now I'm trying to catch up on the drawings that I have to do.
Well, if you need any help putting that together, we're ready to help. So,
I appreciate that.
oh gosh, exciting project. I'm so glad we got the grant to help support your work.
Me too.
So, shifting subjects a little bit, talk about. I know you've been at a number of adjudicated shows around the state, around the West Coast. Talk a little bit about that. You've received some pretty serious accolades in some of these showings.
Yes, I've won best of show. I've won. Let's see. I won best of show in the national painting competition up at the North Valley Art League in Reading, and then I just won first place up there earlier this year before the COVID crisis kicked off.
Open subject. This isn't military only. This is
these are open subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've won first place drawing and first place painting down in at the Lodi Community Arts Center. I've pretty much been staying on the West Coast with the juried shows, just because it's cheaper to get my work to those than it is.
Right.
My work for the most part are relatively sizable, so sending them across the country can cost hundreds of dollars, whereas sending them down the road is pretty cheap. But I've actually this has actually taught me something. I should try to do smaller portraits and maybe
go big or go home, right? Or like those.
But I do have. What's that?
Remember those? There was that whole series of miniatures that were a big thing for a long time.
Yeah, I actually got that idea I went to the Legion of Honor, and they have this 15th century portrait that I had seen only in books before. And I had always thought that this portrait was going to be like, at least 16 by 20 inches. And I go and see it in person, and it's like 4 by 5, tiny little painting. And it just looks so awesome. I was like, oh, I should try to do that. And so I might try that a little more in the future.
Save a little cost of paint while you're at it, right?
Yeah. Save all sorts of costs: shipping, painting, framing.
I remember seeing one of your self portraits at the Cal Expo at the State Fair.
Oh yes,
exhibition.
Yeah, I won an award of merit, 2 awards of merit, both last year and the year before.
Yeah.
So two awards both years. And I was really looking forward to going into that show this year. And unfortunately, the fair got canceled. So that just gives me an additional year to grow a little more as an artist and see if I can do better than an award of merit next time.
What a positive outlook, Aaron. I'm so proud of you. Gee. Look at you. When they give you lemons, you make lemonade.
Oh, well. You gotta take any advantage you can when you can.
Good for you. Good for you. Let's talk more about your maritime paintings and how that led. You had a contract with the Department of Navy
Hmm.
So talk about that. Do we have any more of Aaron's maritime paintings to show? I don't know if we've actually shared any of those yet. If we do, but yeah, talk about the contract. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
I'm see it
I
again.
think that one is a USS Gary. It's called Typhoon Sortie. USS Gary was one of the ships that I served on, and it was in Japan. And so every time a typhoon rolled through, they'd do this thing called a typhoon sortie, where they'd send the fleet out to sea to avoid the typhoon. But
Oh,
somehow the USS Gary always managed to avoid the typhoon by sailing right through it. And so I tried to get that depiction in that
that,
painting.
that sounds a little counterintuitive. Avoid it by
Yeah,
driving into it.
the Gary was a really nimble little ship, but you would really uh, no kidding end up walking on the walls or on the bulkhead, what we call them in the Navy,
Doing that.
and
Wow.
yeah, that ship would just pitch and yaw everywhere. But
What class ship is that?
that was a Oliver Hazard Perry class frigate.
Frigate. Okay.
Yeah. So
Oh,
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, it was probably my favorite ship. It
Hmm.
was a really fun little boat to be on.
A little boat. How long was it? How big?
It was 380 feet long, 389.
Wow. Gee.
Just shy of 400 feet.
So, how'd you wind up with a contract with the Department of Navy?
Uh, I got called out of nowhere by a gentleman in Washington D.C. who had seen my work online, uh, and he asked me if I would like to do uh, some official work for the Navy. And originally he had emailed me, and I got this email, and I'm looking at it like, this is a scam. Like, yeah, because as
Too good to
I'm
be
sure
true.
there are other artists out there who get these scam emails where they're like, I'm getting married in some stan out there, and I need to buy artwork for my wife, so I'll buy
Ah,
all of your artwork. And these are obviously scams. And so
I
this
like
I
I
get,
like that one.
yeah, it's almost like the Nigerian Prince scam, but it's pointed at artists.
Gee.
And then I get this email from this guy who's like, hey, we want you to do artwork for the Navy officially. I was like, well, this is a scam. And my wife was like, well, you should call him at least. And I was like, okay. So I called him, and it turned out not to be a scam. I was like very happy. Um, and it was a fairly lengthy process from the first contact point to actually getting hired. Took a year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then it was really enjoyable work. I got to do some official work for a couple different ships, the USS Fitzgerald and the USS Charleston.
Hmm.
And the contract expired last October, so unfortunately I got laid off at that point. But the silver lining is the contract is up for renegotiation this year, and
Oh, good.
they're probably going to hire me back next year. So
Excellent.
fingers
Now, were these
crossed on.
the projects you're working on? Were these new ships just being commissioned, or?
The Charleston was a new ship. Fitzgerald is not. Fitzgerald is an older ship, but Fitzgerald. Some in the listening audience might remember the Fitzgerald was involved in a collision in Yokosuka, Japan, in 2017, and unfortunately, 7 sailors on the Fitzgerald were killed. So
Hmm.
these these artworks, for the Navy, they have to depict the ship's namesake. So it's not just a picture of the ship. It's also a portrait or a picture of landmarks. It's really, really interesting stuff, and it's a challenge to make these compositions. So
Boy.
I really enjoyed the work, and I'm really hoping to be able to get to do it again.
Were these oil paintings?
No, they're charcoal drawings and watercolor paintings, which is interesting because up until that point, I'd never done a watercolor painting. So
whoa.
I had to learn really quick, and that's where reading about Carl Evers came in. So I decided to look at these other maritime artists who work primarily in watercolor and see how they did it.
Little OJT there, huh?
Yeah, wow. It kicked off, and now I do a lot of watercolor. So, that's another instance of artists always having to learn.
What
I think
how large were the pieces? What kind of format?
They were 18 by 24.
Okay.
So not huge, but fairly large, and mainly in landscape format.
Fantastic. Well, good luck with the renewal of that contract. Golly, hour goes by quickly when you're having fun.
It
does. Let's talk just for a minute about our event tomorrow, Veterans Day. Always special here in Yuba Sutter, and Yuba Sutter Arts loves to celebrate our veterans and what we've done in collaboration with them through the arts over the years. So Aaron, I should point out, is one of the participating artists who will be in our pop-up gallery show tomorrow, Veterans Day, from 3 to 7. As you know, we've been very safe and following all the safety protocols this last year during the pandemic, and have done virtually no in-person events. The Womanicans pop-up gallery show at the Tea Garden House in August was one exception. This is another exception. So we'll have an actual live art gallery opening and reception tomorrow from 3 to 7. Aaron will be there with some of the portraits of veterans. We'll also have Bert Johnson, Vietnam era Army vet, who will be with us, and we'll also be showing a couple of his Western landscapes. I mean, gorgeous work, fairly large, 24 by 36 oil paintings. Brian Scholl, SR-71 pilot, no stranger to most of the veteran community here in town, who has become really a world-class nature and bird photographer. He'll be displaying some of his work. And last but not least, Chris Thompson, Air Force veteran and master ceramic artist, who's coming up from Sacramento to bring some of his bowls and mugs, and gosh knows, he's always talking about trying new techniques. He's doing this whole ceramics fusion with metals thing now, and these gorgeous, they kind of look broken. And maybe that's the process. You break it, then you put it together where you kind of accentuate the breaks. I'm sure there's a lot of deep meaning in that, and Chris will elaborate more when we see him tomorrow. So Chris and Aaron, Brian and Bert will all be with us 3 to 7 tomorrow, and then Aaron will be given a brief presentation about the Pearl Harbor project, and Brian Scholl will also be talking about his, I think he calls it from blackbirds to butterflies, and his work as a nature photographer. So they'll all be on deck with lots of great artwork for you to enjoy. We'll have a reception, refreshments, and outside we'll do social distancing. Please wear a mask. We'll have them if you need them. If you're not wearing one when you come in. So we're hoping for a good turnout, and we're just excited to get the gallery open. And at least for a little bit, they'll be on display tomorrow. And then if you miss it, we'll also have the doors open on Saturday, again from 2 to 4. So hold on. I'm saying that like I know what I'm talking about. That doesn't sound right. Saturday, I'm sorry, from 10 to 2. I had to pull up my scorecard here. So tomorrow, 3 to 7, Saturday, 10 to 2. So with that in mind, let's get to the way we like to wrap up this show each week with our 10 questions that we've cloned from James Lipton's Actors Studio. So he'd ask his guest each week these 10 questions, and we found they kind of open some new insights into our guests, and they're kind of fun. So without further ado, Aaron, what is your favorite word?
Expeditious.
I like it. Calidocious, right? What's your least favorite word?
Tardy.
I like it. I like it. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Education, learning. I think continuing to learn is very important to me. So documentaries, anything that will be edifying.
I think you've proven that during this conversation. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
What turns me off? Messes. Disorganization, I think, is a turn off for me.
Perfect. All right. Ready for this one? What is your favorite curse word?
Am I allowed to say this?
As you wish.
Fuckwit.
That's a new one. First time on this show. Is that a Navy? I don't think I've ever heard it.
Yeah, it might just be something that came out of my mouth one day, and now I use it more than I should.
Yes, indeed. What sound or noise do you love?
I love the sound of pen going across paper. The way, like not a ballpoint pen, but like a real nib
fountain pen.
Nib pen. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, on good quality paper.
Yeah.
Oh, I
it's
like
always
that.
nice.
Another first. What sound or noise do you hate?
Screaming. Yeah,
what
screaming
profession?
Really irritating.
I'm with you. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Maybe architect.
Mm.
Being an architect would be fun. I think if it didn't have math involved, it would be fun.
Well, but there's some engineering and architecture getting the lines on those ships right and
yeah.
the buildings and even the architectural aspects of the face. It's like, there's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah.
What profession would you not like to pursue?
Tax auditor.
That's honest. Any life experience in that regard, or just doesn't sound appealing?
No, it just doesn't sound appealing.
More numbers, right?
Yeah.
More math.
And everybody hates you too.
And last, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
The studio is this way.
Oh, perfect. Absolutely perfect. Did we miss anything? Anything you'd like to share before we conclude?
No, I think we covered a lot.
We did.
Yeah.
I've learned many new things today, thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Stay safe. Be well. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
And thanks so much to our technical support team, producer Abby Cecina, technical director Alex Cecina, and Shante Arroyo behind the scenes, pulling up all those beautiful paintings and drawings during the conversation. So until next time, that's it for Artist Alchemy. And don't forget to tune in next week when my special guest will be artist and arts educator, Sarah Sealander. We'll see you then. Thanks so much.
Thank you.